Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Kalimera. So a couple days ago, Bonnie and I were trying to start a little garden. And while we were doing it, my son ran around the side of the house and started telling us about a black snake. This black snake that was there. So my wife went around and she too, I went around and she too saw it, and the snake went into the rocks and it looked like it was trying to go into one of the pipes. So my wife is like, the snake is going to go into the house. So Peter's like, no! And he started trying to put water in there and everything else. So as we're working, I said, just leave the snake alone. It's better that the snake's out here to eat all the stuff we really don't want. So we're outside working and my son just suddenly disappears. I'm like, what is going on? So we finish, we do what we were trying to do. We go inside, and I went into the restroom and I looked inside the bathtub, and there was a whole bunch of stuff stacked on the drain. What is he doing? And then later on, I didn't give it much more thought. I didn't clean it up. I went back outside, and then I came in to go get cleaned up. And then I also noticed in our drain, there was a whole bunch of stuff stacked up on our drain. And he went and closed all the drains and put a cup inside the kitchen drain. So in his mind, he knew he needed to protect not only himself, but mom and dad as well. That is the protection oftentimes that we often forget. We think to ourselves, and often we have this problem in our lives that the snakes go in through the subtle way and sneak into our lives and become enrooted, and before you know it, they're within our home. And we have to have this protection as we go, as we live, and as we go forward in our Christian walk. We have to have this protection. Today is the last day before the Great Lent starts. Cheesefare Sunday. Also the Sunday of Forgiveness. When we're forgiven, oftentimes, a lot of people say, but I'll never forget. That's also something that we need to get clear in our mind. When Jesus is talking in the gospel to his followers, he is saying to him in that first portion of the gospel, he says, if you forgive men their transgressions, I will forgive you. If, that word if, is a very big word in that sentence. And then again he says, if you do not forgive men their transgressions, then I, my Father, will not forgive you. It's a powerful statement. It's one that resounds in our mind. And a lot of times we say, is forgiveness the most powerful thing? Is forgiveness the most beneficial thing that we can possibly do among our brethren and our brothers and sisters? But it's not the only thing that we need to do. There's other commands that Jesus follows, but today, specifically, we talk about forgiveness. And that word if is a very huge clause, a word inside that statement. If you forgive, you will be forgiven. If you don't, you will not be forgiven. Oftentimes, we can go to God all day long when we ask for forgiveness, and we expect that forgiveness. We expect that God will remove that sin. Right? This little piece of paper says sin on it. Right? This little piece of paper could be all the sins that I have committed, all the things that I have done, all the things that I have transgressed against the Father. Now, when we read the Lord's Prayer every week, we say, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And in other translations, it talks about debtors and the debts and the debtors. Now, that word debt and debtors, is there any way possible that we can actually remove that debt that we owe God? No. There's no way. But when Jesus hung on the cross, when Jesus took that punishment for us, and he took all the sin of the world and removed it from our lives, he, in essence, removed all the sin completely, so it disappears. That piece of paper is gone. It's removed. It doesn't even exist, and no matter how hard I try to put it back together, it's just not there. And one of the poisons that our people as Christians have is unforgiveness. One of the poisons that we have that really restricts us from coming into the fruition of what Jesus has sent us to do is that unforgiveness. Oftentimes we say to ourselves, oh, my spouse, they cheated on me. There's no way I could ever forgive. And if I do forgive, I will never forget it. Or if a best friend betrays you, there's no way I can ever forget it. There's no way I'll forgive. But in the back of my mind, there's a part of me that's always there that will remember what they've done. Well, I pose the question, is that actually forgiveness? Sure, you can remember that in the back of your mind. You can remember the things that people have done against you, but truthfully, and as I am walking in my walk with God, I oftentimes remember the things, and when I remember those things, all the emotions that I had before come back. If I remember somebody betraying me, I remember it, but I also is mixed with a little bit of anger, a little bit of frustration. I still am harboring some sort of ill will against something that that person did to me. Even if I love them with all my heart, even if it's a person that's still in my life, when I remember that sin, when I remember that thing, it still affects me. It's still a poison within me. How is it that we can remove those things? Well, the one thing I can tell you is it takes time. It takes time when you get bit by a snake or a scorpion or something like that. It takes time to actually draw out that poison. You have to immediately go down, you have to tie it off, and you have to cut it open and pull out the poison. You have to get an antivenom. You have to do something to protect yourself from your limbs and your body starting to decay and or lead you to death. Well, that's what sin does. Once sin enters in, it's hard to get rooted out. It's hard to pull any of that out of your life. Sin is something that is insidious. Sin is something that is very good at gaining hold of good ground. And I say good ground. The bad ground's already been broken up. It's already there. It's already dead. And we're trying to remove all those things. The things that we put in our past, the things that we've pushed away, those things are not any concern. But it's the things that we're going to do. And if we have that poison coursing through our body, it restricts us from what we're going to do. Today and tonight, I hope we get people tonight during the service, during the forgiveness vespers, that tonight we will seek forgiveness. We will ask forgiveness of each other. But I also adjure you to say, I hope that you remember the things that people have done to you in the past. And if you haven't forgiven those people fully in your heart, work on this coming Lenten season on your forgiveness. That is important to do. It's important. As you are withholding yourself from meat or cheese or any of the things that you're trying so hard to withstand. I'd say more important is to withstand being angry, withstand saying a cross word, withstand swearing, withstand doing all the things that are dragging you away from God. We need to turn our focus onto Jesus Christ. As we prepare our hearts and as we prepare ourselves for our journey into Lent, we need to look at this life as something there is for us to mantle, something for us to conquer. Our life is our life, and nobody can take it away from you. Sure, they can take away your body, they can kill you, but our life, our soul, that is what the Lord is so desirous over. The soul of a man, the soul of a woman is something that the Lord desires more than anything. And to have that forgiveness and that reconciliation while we're on earth only makes our journey a little bit better. And makes our journey so much sweeter as we prepare. Because we only have a certain amount of time. We only have a certain amount of time before we meet our end. It could be today. It could be this morning. It could be this afternoon. It could be tonight. How many of us are actually prepared? How many of us have our houses in order? And as Jesus says, don't store up for yourselves the treasures here on earth. What can get to the treasures here? Moths and rust. Here in Florida, our treasures can be wiped away in an instant by a tornado or a hurricane. Can be wiped away. But if we are storing ourselves up treasures in heaven, if we're storing up for ourselves that place in heaven, everything that we do, everything that we say as we store up our treasures in heaven is being stockpiled in that mansion that's set aside for us. We're the ones building the walls. We're the ones building the roof. We're the ones building the foundation. And God's up there preparing it. We're storing ourselves up those things in heaven. And the things that hold us back, in this journey and from us storing up those treasures in heaven is that unforgiveness. It's unforgiveness against our brothers and sisters that we can see. Can you imagine if we all prayed for each other fervently and remembered each other every single day in our prayers? Can you imagine what we could accomplish in our personal lives, in our church lives, in our society? Can you imagine if we just prayed fervently? And today, as we prepare ourselves for the fast, it says in the epistle reading, don't make people see what you're doing. You shouldn't, because what people would do is they would fast and they would look all glum and they would be crying and they want pity because of the fasting that they were doing. And you're supposed to wash your face. You're supposed to clean your face so it looks like nobody knows what you're doing. The time is now to prepare. We're at war in this world. It says in the epistle that we are supposed to take on the armor of light and shed off the works of darkness. What is those works of darkness? Well, I've been telling you all along. The works of darkness is the power of unforgiveness. It's the power of sin. Those are the works of darkness in our lives. And when we put on that armor of light, when we put on that light that we can shine out into the world, that light can so brightly shine that the works of darkness will automatically fall away. And when we're slumbering and we're sleeping and the alarm goes on, if we have that armor of light on us all the time, when we are called to war, we don't have to take time to prepare. We'll be ready. Because you've already been storing up for yourselves those treasures in heaven. You've already been storing up for yourselves that place where you can call your own in heaven. Prepare. Be diligent. And get ready for one of the best seasons in our Christian walk, the great Lent that leads us to the resurrection. Prepare. Get ready for something that's wonderful. Make this Lent the best Lent that you could possibly have had ever in your life. Ask God what it is that you need to change. Ask God what it is that you need to seek forgiveness for. Ask God what it is that you need to remove from your life. If it's unforgiveness, this piece of paper says unforgiveness. If it's unforgiveness, then you need to take it to the flame of the Lord and have Him disintegrate it and remove it completely from your life. Do what it is that you need to do to get closer to the throne of God. There's no one's going to be standing with us on the judgment day. The people that hurt us, the people that betrayed us, the people that sinned against us, it doesn't matter. When we stand before the throne of God, none of those people will stand before us, but the Lord will look at us and say, what have you done? And what have you done to forgive other people? And I hope, as a friend of mine reminded me, that when I stand before the Lord, that I will hear, well done, good and faithful servant, as I come into His presence. That's what I want to hear. But I got to prepare now. I got to prepare while we're still here on earth. So today, as we prepare ourselves to receive the gift, the body and the blood of Jesus Christ, as we prepare the gifts, to receive that lifeline to our God, I want you to think about those things. I want you to call those things to mind. I want you to pull them out of your heart and set them before the throne of God, so the Lord our God will be able to remove them fully from our lives.